Today is National Children's Day. So, what does this country actually invest in its children? And what do children receive in return? A major new report from Capri says Jamaica does not even have a formal system for tracking how much of the national budget is spent on children across government. Then, a ruling in Parliament has reignited a long-standing national debate. The Speaker of the House has upheld the standing orders, English only in the House of Representatives. But in a country discussing constitutional reform, republicanism, and national identity, should the language most Jamaicans speak still be excluded from the People's House? And later, Government Senator Marlon Morgan returns for part 2 of our accountability conversation. We ask whether government has adequately balanced fiscal discipline with public need. And we'll close this program the way it deserves to close, with a conversation about the joy and well-being of our children. Because beyond the audits and the arguments, today belongs to them. I'm Jody Ann Quarry, and this is Lead Story. Thanks so much for staying with us inside Lead Story. First, a look at how we prioritize our children in our budget, because the budget reveals what a government believes is worth spending on. But for children who cannot vote, that commitment simply cannot be assumed. It is one of the most powerful lines from a new report released by the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, Capri, examining how Jamaica spends on children. The new report, Room for Improvement, the Gap Between Public Spending and Child Outcomes in Jamaica, commissioned by UNICEF Jamaica, has done what no institution has bothered to do in over 20 years. It has audited every single dollar the government committed to children and asked plainly, did it reach them? The report makes a stark claim. Jamaica does not even have a formal system for tracking child-focused public expenditure across government. It also warns that even where significant money is spent, outcomes are not necessarily matching the investment. We'll be speaking with Capri in a few moments and the lead researcher of that report, Dr. Diana Thorburn, about the findings coming from that document. And it's going to be so important for us to take a look and to see what Capri looked at. It's not a very long report, about 60 pages, but when you go through it and you see the gaps in the reporting here in Jamaica and the limitations that the report indicated it had to work with, it makes it extremely clear for a country that is a member country of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, a country that has a responsibility to continue to commit funds to the upbringing of our children, that has a constitutional responsibility to provide early childhood and pre-primary and primary education. We can't quite account for the money that we've spent. Now, in the report are some concerning findings that have to look at the amount of money we spend on our children and if they actually get there. Concerns about what it looks like to be a country that says it's committed to its children, puts money toward taking care of our children, but as the report has highlighted, about 86% of that money goes to the overheads, to wages, and to staff, and to all the other people who help in the process, but don't quite allow us to see the outcomes that we would want to see. So, on this National Children's Day, a report like this is welcome. Not necessarily brilliant news all the way around, but certainly welcome and helpful for us to look into. Dr. Diana Thorburn, Director of Research at the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, is with me now. Dr. Thorburn, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me and giving us the opportunity to talk about this report.
I'm so glad that you were able to join us today to have this discussion about it as well on National Children's Day. I read the report. Your report says Jamaica does not actually have a system for tracking what it spends on children across government. I was shocked by that. How serious a governance gap is that? To say we concerned about our children, to say we love our children, but not be able to show where the money goes when it comes to our children.
I was also shocked, Jody. Oftentimes we go into reports thinking that we know what the answer that we're going to find is. And this is one of those studies. I thought we're going to look for the evidence, find the evidence that's going to support the preconceived notion that we don't spend enough on children, based on the research we've done before, my own experience in child protection. My assumption was that we don't spend enough, but that's actually not what's happening. We are spending, but because we are not tracking, we can't see where the money is going. And so we're not getting the outcomes that we would expect. And we see this so clearly in education. We have been funding education at a rate above countries richer than us for many, many years. So we spend 5% of GDP, 19% of government spending. The Ministry of Education gets the most money in the budget every year consistently. Education is a priority for us. It has always been a priority for us. There's never been a Jamaican government that said education is not important. And we put money into it and we're still not getting the outcomes that we would expect. We still have extremely low productivity. Jamaica has the lowest productivity in the region, Latin America, Caribbean region. Only Cuba and Haiti are lower than us. We do not want to be in the Cuba and Haiti club, right? But we should not be such a low productivity country because we should have much higher productivity based on how much we invest in education. But because we don't have a system for tracking where that money is actually going, we're not measuring, then we can't see where it's being lost and why we're not getting the outcomes that we would expect for all the money that we're spending.
And a lot of that money, Dr. Thorburn, you put in this report highlighting, yes, we spend far above other countries. You just said it yourself. Countries far more prosperous than us are spending less money. But you have troubling findings coming out of that report, including that productivity finding. As a country that wants to increase productivity, we often speak about as an adult outcome. You have highlighted to us here, using UN data, that by the time the child gets to 18, we have lost out on a lot of that productive time, talking about children spending about 11.4 years in school, but only having the equivalent education of 7.1 years of learning. What does that mean, Dr. Thorburn?
What it means is that we are not investing enough in the period before children go to school. So no matter how great the teacher, no matter how great the school, if a child is not going into school with the cognitive foundation to learn, to take advantage of all that investment in the education, then we're going to have the outcome that we have, which is children reaching half of their productive potential by the time they're 18, learning only 7 years worth of school after spending 11 years in school. So what the report found, what the study found, was that we do spend on children, but the composition of that spending is, could call it imbalanced in two ways. One, which you mentioned in your report, which is that a lot of it goes to compensation and not very much of it is going to all the other elements that are important for delivering these various services to children. But the other thing is that a lot of it is getting consumed by education, whereas the other investments that would redound to children's cognitive development so that they could make the most of this investment in children is not happening. So we're not, and it's not just early childhood education we're talking about, that's also important. And other UNICEF reports have made that very clear, that more needs to be spent on early childhood education relative to later stages, especially tertiary. We're talking about nutrition, health, housing. It is the nature of where a child lives, the family environment. And we're not talking about having mommy and daddy. We're talking about stability and consistency of a caregiver. We're talking about households that are not governed by chaos. We're talking about communities that are stable, that are not volatile. So where a child lives and grows in the first 3 years, both the external conditions of the household and the internal conditions of the household, the relationship with their primary caregiver, the level of stimulation that that caregiver is able to give to that child. Those are the things that we are not spending enough on. And that is why our investment in education is not paying off the way that it ought to.
Given then that this report had a series of findings, and the CPFSA comes easily to my mind, one of the most shocking things that they haven't had a report since, was that 2018? No annual report from them. What are some recommendations from the report that you would want the government then to action?
Well, we had 5 recommendations. 2 were kind of obvious that they need to start tracking. There are governments, ministries, and agencies that spend on children need to have a dedicated tracking mechanism. This is something that exists in many countries in the world. We already have public financial management frameworks that could be utilized. So this would not be a starting from zero endeavor. The other big macro recommendation is referring to what I just talked about, is more needs to be spent outside of education, including in arts and culture and sports. There have been a lot of commitments made to arts and culture and sports that have not been fulfilled. That category we found gets the least amount of all categories in child-related spending, and that has been shrinking in real terms. So we want to consider ourselves a creative and cultural and track and field superpower, but we're not putting the money behind it. The government is not putting it. Us taxpayers who expect our government to be doing this, they're not doing that. Some more specific recommendations have to do with child protection and CPFSA reporting on its work and on its activities. One of the most troubling findings of the report was that the allocation for foster care has gone down in real terms quite significantly over the reporting period, meaning between 2018 and 2025, 2026, which is the period that the report looked at. And that's a serious finding because, first of all, we know that family-based care is much better for children than institutional care. Second, family-based care is much less expensive. It's about 15% of the cost of institutional care. And third of all, the government has a stated commitment to deinstitutionalization, yet it continues to place children in children's homes. We want a Jamaica where there's no children's home, where children's home is not even a thing. It's a thing of the past.
They don't exist anymore. They comply with what they said that they're going to be doing. We have this tracking of spending, and at the end of the day, we say we prioritize children and then put our money where our mouth is. Dr. Diana Thorburn, lead researcher on this project and director of research at Capri, thank you so very much for joining us and doing the work to help uncover if we in fact prioritize our children the way we say we do. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
We'll take a break and come back to you. Are we speaking the language of the masses in Parliament? That's up next.
Every day we use our feet to walk, run, and take us places. But your feet can do something even more amazing. Join Guardian Group's Shine 5K Night Run Walk and make a stride to support KPH, the Falmouth Hospital, and Project Star. Saturday, May 23 in Kingston and Saturday, May 30 in Montego Bay. Register at run2shineja.com or runningeventsja.com and see you at Guardian Group's Shine 5K Night Run Walk.
It's a call to worship.
I won't let you go to
Jamaica's unemployment rate has fallen to 3.3%, down from 13.2% in 2016. Our government's continued focus on job creation is delivering real results. We are building Jamaica. The time by the Office of the Prime Minister is...
It's a call to worship.
I won't let you go to the blessing. I won't let you go to the blessing.
National National Workers' Week and Labor Day Church Service. Sunday, May 17, 10:30 a.m. at St. John's Methodist Church, 2 Duke Street, Montego Bay. And it will be live right here on CVM. Sunday, May 17, starting at 10:30 a.m. Let's come together to lift up the workers of Jamaica in prayer.
I know I'll make it if you come stand by me. Something tells me that you hear me.
This week, a moment in Parliament sparked a national conversation. On Wednesday, opposition spokesperson on culture, creative industries and information, Nikisha Burchell, rose in the House of Representatives to deliver her maiden contribution to the sectoral debate. She began in Jamaican Creole. She was stopped within seconds by House Speaker Juliet Holness, who cited the standing orders. Those are the rules that govern the conduct of the House, which provide, and I'm giving you the direct quote here, the proceedings and debates of the House shall be in the English language. Those words have been in place since 1964. Let's take a look at what happened in Parliament on Wednesday.
Madam Speaker, I get up this afternoon to make my first sectoral speech for my portfolio.
Hold on. Standing orders. And I think you are fully aware. And if I have to stop you again during your presentation, you will not get any additional time. No, and she knows.
Broken English. It's English, it's broken.
Standing order 6, page 3.
When I speak to this,
representation and culture. That's Spanish. That's
Madam Speaker, here allow me to speak. A leader. Madam Speaker, perhaps I should abandon that attempt to use our local language because I have been reminded of the linguistic conventions of this Honorable House. Because maybe there is no more fitting way to begin a presentation on culture than to speak briefly in the language understood by the overwhelming majority of Jamaican people.
And that was Nikisha Burchell in Parliament on Wednesday. You saw what followed, a brief but telling exchange. Government members backed the Speaker, some making chants about it being broken English. Opposition members argued that the member should have been permitted to speak in the language understood by the overwhelming majority of the Jamaican people, Jamaican Creole. MP Burchell herself pointed out the irony. She was the spokesperson for culture and creative industries. The subject of her contribution was culture. Speaker Holness upheld the standing orders, that document that we have in the House requiring members to speak in English during presentations inside the House. For some, it was a simple matter of procedure and order. For others, it raised a deeper question about culture, accessibility, power, and who gets to sound like themselves in the country's highest lawmaking body. And it comes at a time when Jamaica is discussing constitutional reform, republicanism, and national identity. With a whole constitutional reform process, no matter where it is, whose mandate says the new constitution should be, quote, deeply grounded in the cultural fabric of the nation. Dr. Rowan Lewis is an associate professor of language, culture, and society at the University of Technology, Jamaica, UTech, and he joins us this evening. Dr. Lewis, thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening to you and your viewers.
Dr. Lewis, on Wednesday, we just saw MP Burchell attempt to open her contribution in Jamaican Creole. which was immediately stopped. As a sociolinguist, what were you observing in that exchange?
All right, so there are several things that were happening. One, we will speak about a little later, perhaps the matter that I think we should be beyond by now, the fact that she spoke out of turn in a language that was not, according to standing orders, the language to be used in Parliament. So that we can deal with a little later. But in terms of the broader implications, the broader issues, I think those are what are important. The fact that the Parliament is a place that ought to be reflective of the people that, one, are sent there by the people of the country to represent them, and two, to also represent the people of the country. And that this Parliament, through language, does not reflect the Jamaican people. And that is a broader sociocultural issue that needs to be addressed.
You did speak about that more timely matter, though, watching that exchange, that back and forth, having MP Burchell start her speech on culture in Jamaican Creole and the reactions to it. What was your reflection on the reactions that you saw, not only from the House Speaker, whose responsibility it is to uphold those standing orders, those are from 1964, but also there's been a bigger discussion saying we need to write down what happens in Parliament, having an official record called the Hansard, and for legal precision and certainty, we can't have Jamaican Creole in Parliament at the same time. So it sounds great, it sounds nice, but really for the heavy business that the House is dealing with, perhaps this English-only rule might still make sense. What are your thoughts?
There are two issues. One, the matter of the standing orders. I think Speaker Holness could have handled the situation a little differently. There could have been an opportunity for her to suspend the proceeding, call for a vote on the matter for the suspension of standing orders to allow the member to use Jamaican Creole, because this is a matter that has huge national implications. It's not a simple matter of the rules are the rules. This is a matter about colonialism, decolonization, and again, just like the issue with the mace, you played into a discourse that is anti-colonial, that is gaining traction. So what the speaker has done is to paint herself into a corner of defending the colonialists that left us all of these tools, the mace and the language. You have to be careful about the optics, how it looks. Yeah, and I don't think she understood that. So in this case, I think she should have handled it a little differently. Pause, recall, call for a vote, and then get the matter to be dealt with, like we had with Member Terry Long and the Spanish, even though Member Warrington called on him to stop using Spanish because English is supposed to be the language of the House. That notwithstanding, the matter was handled badly, all right? That's one thing though. The question of the use of Jamaican Creole and the role of the Parliament in determining that use is critically important. Languages are about identity. They come with a whole lot of social and cultural questions, and I don't think simply going by this is the standing order deals with the Jamaican language question. So let's expand that a little bit. Well, before I came on the program, I was doing a little bit of research because it's something that has been bothering me for some time, how we deal with language in this country and how we deal with Jamaican Creole in particular. Do you know that children who come from China and from Hispanic countries, when they're doing PEP in the primary system, they get an accommodation for the lack of knowledge of English? Do Jamaican children who speak Jamaican Creole get a similar kind of accommodation? No, because the assumption is that the Jamaican child speaks English, can use English. The foreigner comes, gets an advantage over the Jamaican child, simply because we have not given the language question the kind of weight it deserves. I think we have to move beyond the kind of knee-jerk reactions of Patois is bad, English is good, Patois versus English. It's not about Patois versus English. It's Patois and English. It's Patois and English and Spanish, right?
And that awareness
we have to move away from these kinds of...
And that awareness, well, hold on, Dr. Lewis, because that awareness then of distinct languages, for many Jamaicans, they can see Jamaican Standard English and Spanish as distinct languages. For many of them, they struggle with the idea that Jamaican Creole and Jamaica Standard English are different languages. And so the accommodations of which you speak are much more difficult for people to see. But 2 points there. One, about speaker wholeness. MP Burchell knew that she was going to start her presentation in Jamaican Creole. Why do you not consider it to be her responsibility to have requested a suspension of the standing orders then to allow for her presentation in that respect? And then secondly, responding to now your concerns about the way we deal with Jamaican and Jamaican Creole here. The Constitutional Committee was something that we would have been seeing this reform process in 2025. Speaker Holness coming back into the position of Speaker indicated a review of the standing orders was necessary. But even from as far as 2011, for the Constitutional Committee on Language Rights, for the inclusion of Jamaican Creole in the Jamaican Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms, in 2011 we looked and said we didn't want it in there. But we still have in Chapter 13, freedom of expression. All of that put together, was it not Speaker, but rather MP Burchell's responsibility to say, I want to speak this way in the House, please allow me to do so in conformity with the rules?
You make an absolutely fair point, and I wouldn't, beat you down on that. So I'm not saying that she should have gone and started her presentation in Jamaican Creole knowing that English is the language of the House. That's not my point. My point is that from the perspective of the Speaker, where she saw this coming, when she saw this coming, her response could have been, and I think that's also a fair point. So I think the PNP is playing a strategy on Juliet Holness, and she's not reading it. They're painting her as a colonial master kind of puppet, and I don't think she's understanding that. Now, with the Mace issue, that was one part of it. This is another part of it. You don't want that to happen because this issue is bigger than both parties. So what I think could have happened and what should have happened is for her to have seen what was coming, seen how they behave in Parliament, and moved to make this a more important national discussion. Because now what has happened is that she's being seen as a roast breadfruit. You don't want that. Right? She
and you've made this reference to roast breadfruit with a reference to someone who is, and I'm clarifying here, what is the purpose of that particular comment?
No, that she is now, she's representing the oppressor's instruments. She's defending them.
She's the Speaker of the House of Parliament, which has parliamentary rules that are governing how Parliament has operated and continues to do so since 1964. Why is it she and not the parliamentary rules that all 64 members in the House, or 63 members in the House, uphold?
No, and I've said that there is a responsibility on the part of both. I'm saying from the perspective of someone looking on to see that, so if you see someone coming to attack you, you don't say the rules are the rules, the police need to come and get them. If you see the person coming and you have a way of getting out of the way of the person, you take advantage of that opportunity. That's
so there was a space to navigate then that you saw that you thought that she could have been able to operate. And this then leads to this national conversation that we have now about Jamaican Standard English, Jamaican Creole, and then this broader discussion on what representing Jamaicanness in Parliament then looks like. It's clearly going to be an important one. Similar to the Mace conversation, each of these are references to a colonial past that now takes us into 2026. Dr. Ron Lewis, it's clear that we're going to have more of these conversations and perhaps a broader one. But thanks so much for joining us this evening inside Lead Story as Associate Professor of Language, Culture and Society at the University of Technology. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
We're going to take a break inside Lead Story and come back. Part 2 of our conversation with Senator Marlon Morgan.
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
It's a call to worship.
I won't let you go till you bless me. I won't let you go till you bless me.
National Workers' Week and Labor Day Church Service. Sunday, May 17, 10:30 a.m. at St. John's Methodist Church, 2 Duke Street, Montego Bay. And it will be live right here on CVM. Sunday, May 17, starting at 10:30 a.m. Let's come together to lift up the workers of Jamaica in prayer.
I know I'll make it if you come stand by me. Something tells me that you hear me.
Earlier this week, the Auditor General's real-time audit report raised questions about hurricane-related expenditure following Hurricanes Beryl and Melissa. The government has defended its approach as responsible fiscal management. But for many Jamaicans still waiting for relief or recovery support, the word they hear is not prudence, it is delay. Senator Marlon Morgan is a government senator and a senior member of the Jamaica Labour Party's Communication Task Force. Over the past 3 months, he's been the government's most prominent public voice on several of the most politically sensitive stories in this country. The Auditor General's real-time audit of Hurricane Melissa relief funds, the allegations at the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, the Dennis Gordon matter, and more. Senator Morgan is a central player in how this government defines accountability. And he joins us again this evening. Senator Morgan, thank you for returning.
Hi, good evening, Jody, and let me say good evening to our viewers as well. Good to be back.
You have to say our viewers because at this point in time, Senator, we don't have you come on there, ours indeed, Senator.
That's it. But just to correct your editorial, the Prime Minister is our foremost, followed by our Information Minister, Senator the Honorable Dana Morris-Dixon.
Yes, Senator Morgan. However, you are...
I just chip in.
Yeah, you know what? You're chipping in, Senator Morgan, make you very visible, you know, in the chipping in process. But you've issued a statement today providing a breakdown of how the Jamaica $1.44 billion in donor funds is now being allocated. And that's been conversation we had yesterday. It's been national conversation coming out to the real-time audit from the Auditor General. You said that we're going to be using millions for modular housing bases, 240 for roof repairs, 560 committed to additional recovery. Now, the Auditor General's report captured the position as at February 23. That's before these commitments were made. Why did it take more than 4 months after the storm for those allocations to be made, and why is the nation just finding out about them today on May 15, Senator Morgan?
No, so just to be clear, and this was an, media may not have picked up on this, but the Finance Minister, Jodian, when she made her contribution to the budget debate back in March of this year, she did outline that there is some $67 billion that the government has earmarked in relation to support to certain critical sectors, not least the Ministry of Health, the Agriculture Ministry to support the retooling of our farmers and provide assistance to our farmers, the Ministry of Education as well, in addition to road infrastructure via the NWA. So it had long been communicated to the public that in response to the passage of Hurricane Melissa and the exigent relief and recovery that now needs to ensue, the government, because it has built up fiscal buffers and it essentially was in the throes of casting the budget for fiscal year 26-27. These were the allocations being made. But separate apart from the budget debate as well, the public has to understand that even prior to the impact was suffered from Hurricane Melissa, resources were made available, Jordan, for pre-hurricane impact activities such as drain cleaning and bushing, so other preparatory work, in addition to the pre-positioning of care packages for our shelters and other vulnerable groups. So those things ensued, and it came from the financial resources of government, which is separate and apart from the donor funds, because
I'm glad you made that reference.
It is important.
Yes.
We believe it is important to be able to, from our own resources, mitigate whatever challenges or choppy seas that come our way as a country, in as much as we appreciate the donations that are, made available to us to assist our Jamaican brothers and sisters.
I think that's so important that you've made that distinction, Senator, because the drain cleaning programs, the bushing programs, those are ones that Jamaicans have become accustomed to. But you referenced that $67 billion in total government Hurricane Melissa spending, talking about what the finance minister had spoken about in her budget presentation, including a $24 billion loan to the Jamaica Public Service Company. Senator, though, a government loan to a private institution is a financial instrument with repayment terms. It's not a disaster relief disbursement. So when you present that figure as part of the recovery package to the Jamaican people, are you being precise?
I'll tell you why it's Jeremy. So I am being precise, Jordan, and it was a very strategic and important intervention for government to make. So you can appreciate how your economy is likely to grind to a halt, particularly in some sections of the island when they are out of electricity, because electricity is what powers your shops, it powers your hairdressing salons, it powers barbershops, you name it, supermarkets, and all kinds of infrastructure and facilities. Now, the Jamaica Public Service, without the injection of those 300 linesmen, Jodian, it would have taken the JPSCO an inordinate period of time to get the light posts back up and get the electricity reconnected in the western parts of the island. We here in Kingston were negligibly impacted, but spare a thought, if you may, for our brothers and sisters over in Hanover, Westmoreland, St. James, and of course, St. Elizabeth, our breadbasket parish. So you have to consider the situation we would have been in if we didn't have an accelerated restoration of power. And people have to make the link between electricity and people's livelihood.
And are you making the link between the electricity payment? Are you making the link between the electricity payment that was made to JPS and the donations, the $1.44 billion? Because that's what the Auditor General's report.
No, I'm not making that link. The point I'm making a while ago was this bundle, the $67 billion that has been provided by government to facilitate our recovery as a country, consequent on the impact of Hurricane Melissa. There is a 24 billion Jamaican dollars portion of it, which is essentially the US equivalent of 150 million US dollars. So just to be clear, what we're saying is that we had to do that, or we elected to do that, because we remained bullish and firm on the question of not having the JPSCO license extended. You saw that we took some flack as an administration for that. We could stand to reason that a PNP administration would have done it differently. It would have locked the Jamaican people into this sordid arrangement or existing JPSCO license, which is offensive to many Jamaicans. Now, the JPSCO as well wanted us to extend their existing license and not have the terms renewed. And as an administration, you would have heard Minister Vaz on the matter several times over, making the point that we are unequivocal in relation to trying to secure the best deal going forward in relation to the energy, the provision of electricity in Jamaica, whether it is with the existing provider, the JPSCO, or some other provider.
And making sure then that Jamaicans linked the money that had been paid, that $24 billion to JPS, a loan that will have to be repaid as part of
by the JPSCO.
Right, by the JPS, they will have to then see that as part of government spending. Whether or not they admit that, though, and they see what it is that you're talking about, the Auditor General also found that Jamaican $138.8 million in hurricane burial donations from 2024 remained unspent and were never reported to the Ministry of Finance as required by law. Now, that predates Melissa, that predates NARA, the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, and it predates any conversation about bureaucratic red tape. How do you account for then the burial money?
So it's not that the money was not reported to the Ministry of Finance. The money is sitting in the coffers of ODPED. It is the case where the requisite committee that is to direct that ODPED's audit, the audit of the Disaster Relief Fund, be undertaken. That committee had been in abeyance. I gather there are steps now consistent with the findings of the Auditor General report to have such a committee up and running so that the respective statements of account and of course the audit of said account in keeping with law is undertaken in the same way our public bodies across the island are required to provide their financials and their annual reports 4 months following the end of the fiscal year in any given year. So the idea is that it's important for the public to note that we are in a new era, Jodian, of public fund management and accounting, because having regard to deficits that we have had in the past, and speaking here now of the trust deficit that people approach the conversation from, the kind of cynicism that often engulf anything that people consider government being involved in, we would not want to have the donor community undermined and the goodwill of Jamaica compromised in terms of persons pouring into Jamaica, whether in this particular event that hit us in October or any future event to come. So the accounting treatment of the proceeds that came into Jamaica has been at the highest levels, and that has resulted in some amount of delays in relation to funds being released to ADPEN. But the government has strategically as well reserved a considerable portion of the 1.44 billion that we received in donor funds, Jodian, for tangible and demonstrably evident value-adding things.
And that will be important.
Such as the construction of the concrete basis.
Right.
And of course, the government-directed roof repair initiative.
And we had that conversation yesterday talking about the basis 6 currently in place, no container houses.
Well, there's a community being built, in
right.
Westmoreland.
Exactly. And we had that conversation about it yesterday. Had the conversation with the Westmoreland Central MP specifically, of course, but we had that conversation, and we're still seeing now this process being undertaken. That National Disaster Committee, however, hadn't met since 2023. That meant that Beryl happened, Melissa happened, still nothing put in place there. Senator Morgan, though.
The committee met at the onset of the season last year, and then, as you know, there has been a subcommittee of cabinet co-chaired by Ministers Vaz and Mackenzie, which has been, having issues concerning preparedness
issues indeed, so much so that they came up in an Auditor General's report as well.
Well, the Auditor General has a job to do, as do we as government. We have to manage our country's resources in a prudent fashion, and of course continue to usher in this new culture, Jodian, and this new era of management and stewardship of public funds, because it is important for the donor community to be assured that whatever they pour into Jamaica to assist their Jamaican brothers and sisters are utilized for purposes as intended. And that's the assurance that we give to the people as an administration, and we are continuing to point to and deliver tangible, as I said before, and demonstrably evident initiative. You can look on the bases, you can look at the roofs that were repaired,
and to show people that work was done.
And we can show that work was done,
Senator Morgan,
than being subjected to contested controversy.
And I think that's so important for people as they watch and they think, as you said, sparing a thought for our brothers and sisters in the West.
As an administration.
Senator Morgan, though, you serve simultaneously as government senator and the JLP's chief communications officer.
No.
We're hearing you.
Minister Fitzhenley is the chief. I am a member of the team.
Member of the team on the communications task force. And as you speak to us, you're speaking as a representative in Jamaica's legislature. You're also speaking to us, helping us better understand the perspective of the Jamaica Labour Party as you are having opposition members in the People's National Party put in the public domain their positions on issues. How do you manage both those roles? Because some might feel that you are managing political narrative instead of being legislatively accountable when you're responding, especially to things like the Auditor General.
One of the things that happened with us in the Jamaica Labour Party is that we go through a period of, internship and capacity building. You can call it an immersion that helps you to develop your skill set and be a person of high capacity so that you can wear several hats and navigate several roles and do so at appropriate and desired levels. Because the truth is, your legislative hat is an important one. This coming Friday, I'm going to be intent on moving a motion calling for the establishment of a day to be observed, Jodian, as National Security Forces Day. while I am one of the persons who is engaged in the communication in relation to the just passed NARA bill, while I'm here on this platform with you, as I will be on other platforms as well, vis-a-vis this particular
Senator Morgan, you're explaining to me a long list of things that you have to do every single day as you're managing, but I'm out of time. Listen, Senator Morgan.
You're just driven by a love for Jamaica.
Well, it's clear. It is clear, Senator Morgan, that your love for Jamaica had you come back to us a second time. I'm now completely out of time with you once again.
On a Friday evening. All the best for
all the very best to you, Senator Marlon Morgan. Thank you again for joining us this evening. When we return on National Children's Day, we end with a different question. In a world of stress, can we give our children joy?
It's no scam and style me.
From the market to the farm to the office, money talk is everywhere. But are you making sense or nonsense? The Bank of Jamaica brings you common sense with BOJ. Real stories, real laughs, and real lessons to help you protect, grow, and manage your money. Mattress savings.
At least my mattress. You charge me to sleep on it.
Partner plan.
Remember last year we needed our payouts early? But Miss Pam gave it to her cousin first.
Or a sketchy loan flyer.
Electrifying deals.
See why making the right financial choices is pure common sense. Brought to you by Bank of Jamaica, empowering everyday Jamaicans one episode at a time.
Grandpa, it's 2026. You can't keep hiding all your money in every single pocket forever.
Earlier this month on Lead Story Prime, we examined the mental health of our nation's children. Well, now we're looking at how we can celebrate them today and how we can give them joy. We are joined this evening inside the show by Dr. Patrice Charles King, counseling psychologist and founder of the Phoenix Counseling Center, as well as Nicole Morgan, early childhood development training and development manager. They join us now inside the show. Dr. Charles King and Nicole Morgan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Charles King, on National Children's Day, what does a healthy, happy childhood actually look like?
You know, I think that when we look at our children, we have to understand that they need more than just food, clothing, and shelter in school. I think their childhood should feel emotionally safe, playful. I don't think our children play as much anymore. Children need to feel hopeful, connected, and secure. You know, it should be a period where children are allowed to grow, explore, make mistakes, you know, without feeling as if their world is ended if they were to make a mistake. And children just need to feel loved and just discover who they are without constantly living in survival mode. And what we need to understand is not just about what children feel like in their childhood, but what happens around them that causes them to think in a negative way, that we're putting our children in their nervous system constantly in survival mode.
I think that's so important because as we talk about the stress that children are in, we want them to have joy. Nicole Morgan, can children experience joy and still experience that in periods of economic stress or after trauma and disruption?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I do believe that children can be joyful if they have the support system. And the support system includes the community, the parents, and the classroom, the teachers. But the parents play a critical role in that joyful child. What does a joyful child look like? A child that is happy. And I do agree with Dr. Charles King. Play is very important. And through play, when children are engaged in play, you can see how happy they are.
I think that's so important because we have a whole day for mothers, a whole day for fathers, now a whole day for children, and celebrating that is so important. Dr. Charles King, we're celebrating it on a Friday, a school day, because we have noted that some children don't go home to very safe home environments. Help us then understand, where they're at school and they're playing and they're celebrating, what role does play, routine, and emotional safety have in a healthy development?
And you just said it a while ago, all of those things, routines, predictability, that creates a calm nervous system. And so when a child is calm, then they can think better. Their executive functioning skills, which are housed in their frontal lobe, once they are in survival mode, once that nervous system is chaotic, everything, their executive functioning skills are going to dim. It's going to lessen. They're going to become impulsive, indecisive, disorganized. And so it's so important that we create routines for our children so that they can even feel emotionally safe and so that they can feel less anxious, less stressful. And I was given the joke that as a Gen X, in my generation, when I was a child, I literally did not have the word anxiety or stress as a part of my vocabulary. And if you talk to children now, they're always stressed, they're always anxious. So it's so important to introduce them to the way that we used to live. Go outside, play, get off of social media, because I really think that social media pressure, amongst everything else that they have to deal with, grief, violence, instability, financial hardships, even their own internal family stress and emotional neglect that they're getting from parents who are not involved enough. Social media pressure amongst all is creating more anxiety and stress and causing our children to question their own self-worth and their own value. So we need to get our children back to the days where they can go outside and skip and play dandy shandy and hide and seek and just understand the fun and how much it is to appreciate their youth. Don't worry, you're going to become an adult soon. And adulting is just as hard and probably even harder. So we as adults, we really need to encourage our children and to be deliberate in creating a very emotionally safe environment for our kids to develop.
I think that's so lovely for you to say, Dr. Charles King, especially for many parents who are looking at their little one today and trying to figure out how they're managing. Nicole Morgan, you are deep in early childhood. You are when they're teeny tiny, you are there with them as they become themselves. Hearing Dr. Charles King now talk about her own childhood or her own experiences, are children today losing something essential about their own childhoods?
It depends. However, when creating that space for the children, we need to guide parents in how to support their children that they do not lose their childhood. Play is very important, and I agree with Dr. Charles King. Engaging in play, children have pleasure. They learn a lot of things during playtime. And you talked about established routines. When parents engage with the children, these routines can be just reading a story. When you use the technology, you can engage the children, talk about what are you watching, create that conversation for them, allow them to appreciate how important that conversation, that connection, that routine. When children come in from school, they know what to expect. A calm, happy mother, the child will be happy. A happy father, so the child will be willing to speak to the parents and be resilient. When parents play with their children, the children become confident and they enjoy their childhood, because, as you said, the younger years is very important. It's the foundational years. And children model what they see in their environment. And play is fun. Play is relaxing. So we need to ensure that the children are engaged in play so they can be resilient and productive and happy children at school and at home.
I think that's so lovely. I really feel for our children. I really feel that giving them joy is going to be so important. So my final question to you both, what do you want every child in Jamaica to feel today? First to you, Nicole Morgan.
I want every child to feel happy and confident and know that they are listened to and they know that they have a right. Whatever they do, they are appreciated and they are happy.
All right, final word to you, Dr. Charles King, as we close. What do you want every child in Jamaica to feel today?
I want every child to feel hope. I want them to feel loved and cared for. I want them to feel confident enough to express their emotions and confident enough to problem solve, even if it doesn't really work out the first time. But I want them to understand that we are here to support them, and that it is okay to be a child. It is okay to run around and to have fun, and just be hopeful that, you know, things are going to get better, and understand that, you know, it's not as important as school is, and yes, it is important. Protecting yourself, protecting your wellness, and protecting your health is most important. And we do that through play.
Yeah.
Through healthy play.
Healthy play indeed. You both, though, have brightened the hearts of so many adults and have given hope to so many children today. Dr. Patrice Charles King, counseling psychologist with the Phoenix Counseling Center, and Nicole Morgan, early childhood development, ECD training and development manager. Thank you both so much for joining us on this National Children's Day. Really appreciate it. Bye. Of course. Bye. Today is National Children's Day, and throughout the show we've been asking a single question in different ways. What kind of country are we building for our children? The Capri report raised questions about whether Jamaica can even accurately track what it spends on children and whether that spending is produced